So after a few hectic months of transfer activity, the summer transfer window has now shut, and in today's video we're going to be going through each Championship club's transfer activity and throwing them into the following tier list. A side has either had a bad window, a meh window, solid, they've done some great business, or they're winning the window. Your Championship club, which tier would you put them in? But without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out with Birmingham, there's been a lot of hype over Birmingham's transfer dealings this summer, and I have to say, I think they are one of the clubs up there that have been winning the window this summer. Now, it's easy sometimes to get sucked into the fact of when a team signs a lot of new players, a lot of fresh faces coming in, we instantly think that's a great thing, and that's not always the case. But with Birmingham, there's no doubt in my mind that the quality in their squad has been significantly upgraded when compared to that team from last season. I think they've utilised the European and loan markets very well. Yes, they probably could have done with another centre forward, but Stansfield's been doing the business for them up until this point, who's obviously joined on loan. So yeah, no doubt in my mind, Birmingham up there with winning the window. They received quite a bit of cash as well in this window. I think they've used it very well. So overall, Birmingham definitely one of the best sides with their transfer dealings this summer. Blackburn Rovers, maybe a little bit under par. Obviously, we knew that Brereton Diaz would be moving on this summer. Ashley Phillips left as well. And obviously Thomas Kaminski to add along with that. Was quite surprised they let John Buckley leave on loan. He obviously joins up with Sheffield Wednesday. Of the additions that they have made, I think there have been a few solid captures, albeit they look a little bit light in a few areas for squad depth. And when compared to some of these other Championship clubs, I'd probably say it's been a bit of a meh window for Blackburn, really. We knew that things may be a little bit difficult for Blackburn coming into this summer with some of the readings we were getting from behind the scenes in the picture there. So overall, been a little bit under par for me, I think, Rovers this time. After that, for Bristol City fans probably expecting a little bit more from this window, especially when they sold Alex Scott and got as much cash as they did get for him in the end, and not really going about reinvesting any of that money back into the squad. They started out the window fairly solid with some good captures early on, but as the window went on, all seemed to sort of just fizzle out for Bristol City, really. I do like the capture of Jason Knight especially, but then with some of their other incomings, we're yet to really see them in action. With Roberts, he's not really featured much so far. McCrory, we're yet to see in the Championship either. So overall for Bristol City, considering the loss of Scott, I'd probably put it in as a bit of a meh window as well, really. Now, Cardiff were always going to be up against it in this transfer window because they were under an embargo, but considering that, I actually think they've done some really good business dealings. Obviously had to utilise the loan and free market agent to their advantage. In the end, I think they've done that. We've seen with their sort of style of play so far this season, a bit more about them going forward in the final third, and while there will always be some areas to plug up, overall for Cardiff, I'd say it's been a really solid transfer window for them, maybe even pushing into great business if some of those free transfers go on and continue to smash it. Next then, for Coventry, it's been a really exciting window for Mark Robins' men, and had you told Coventry fans at the start of the window that you would be losing both Gustavo Hamer and Victor Gyökeres in the same window, I'm sure there would be a little bit of panic. But despite all that, they've gone about rebuilding the rest of their squad, and I think they have upgraded several other areas of their team. The recruitment, I think, has been consistent with the profile of player that they've gone after. The vast majority of signings Coventry have picked up this summer have been 25 or under, obviously with an eye to the future and to continue developing these players. And while there probably still is a little bit of a gap in central midfield because of that loss of Gus Harmer, I do think they've upgraded other positions around the pitch, and I still think there's more to come from Ellis Sims and Haji Wright especially, who could be really good options long term for Coventry. So all that taken into consideration, I think they're another side that could be winning the window. You know, the offset loss of Harmer and Gyökeres can't be underestimated, but the way they've utilised the foreign market, the money they've reinvested back into that squad, and the fact they're working at a net positive as well, yeah, I'm going to say Coventry have absolutely smashed it. And to get that much money for two players who were in the last year of their contracts, also great business. Huddersfield Town, I think it's been quite an under par transfer window from their point of view. Only two signings made on a permanent basis, one of them being Chris Maxwell, a backup goalkeeper. I do like the addition of Ben Wiles, and they have picked up a couple of loanees as well. But the big thing this Huddersfield squad needed was attacking reinforcements this summer. They needed a striker or two as a bare minimum, and they've not really gone ahead and addressed those issues. They are a side who I expect will be probably looking about in the free agents market, but judging their summer business in isolation, I'm going to say it's been a bad window for Huddersfield. I don't think that Warnock's been adequately back there. Next then for Hull City. Now Hull's transfer window was an interesting one. It was a little bit of a slow burner at the start of the window, but things really picked up in the final couple of weeks. Another side who's utilised the loan market to their advantage so far. Liam Delap, who I really wasn't sure about at the start of the season. I think he's looked great in a Hull shirt so far. Scott Twine, another excellent pickup on loan. And obviously the best bit of business they've done perhaps is that permanent deal for Jaden Philogene-Bidens coming from Aston Villa. All in all for Hull, I think they've done some great business in this window, and as a result of that really could be pushing up the table. Ipswich Town are an interesting one because they started the summer transfer window out really promisingly with that capture of Jack Taylor. In the end, they've not done as much business as I actually thought they might have done, considering the money we all thought that Ipswich had behind them this summer, some of the players they were being linked to early on, and some potential massive transfer fees that they were willing to pay. In the end, it's been a little bit more sensible. As a result of that, perhaps they've left themselves a little bit short of squad depth in some areas, but they've utilised the loan market well. The permanent captures that they have picked up, I think, have all looked solid additions so far. And overall, I'd probably put Ipswich down as a solid transfer window. The first few weeks, it was looking like great business winning the window, but things cooled off a little bit towards the end. And overall, I put Ipswich in that sort of category, but a very competitive squad still for the Championship. Leeds United took an age to get going in this transfer window, but in the end I think they've actually done quite well with the additions they've made. Two of the biggest signings we've seen in the Championship this summer in Joel Perreault and Ethan Ampadu, adding more players to that towards the end of the window as well, with the likes of Kamara and Jed Spence coming in. The only downfall with Leeds in this window is compared to Leicester and Southampton, who have made over 100 million each on player sales, Leeds just haven't managed to do that as a result of player contracts and how they work them out in the Premier League. The fact they've had to loan so many players out this season, and they've not really got a significant transfer fee for anyone bar Tyler Adams. As a result of that, I think their transfer business does fall down a little bit, so I'm going to put them into the solid category. I think they've saved things towards the end, because the first few weeks, the first month of that transfer window was looking like a bit of a mess, but I think in the end Farke's coming out with a decent squad. Yes, the loss of Sinistera hurt towards the end, but it's still a very capable squad for this level. After that, for Leicester City, I'm probably going to put them in the great business category. Unlike Leeds, they were able to make an absolute fortune from selling some of their stars that did get that move straight back to the Premier League, and they've managed to use those funds to reinvest back into the squad. Made some huge signings this summer with the likes of Tom Cannon coming in on deadline day, Harry Winks, Connor Cody before that, Steffi Mavididi, who's looked lively, and overall working on a net positive considering the sales they've made this summer. I think Leicester's squad right now is looking very competitive, and no reason whatsoever why they shouldn't be right there at the top of the Championship given the tools that Maresca has available to him. As a Preston fan, I was gutted that it was Leicester that landed Tom Cannon in the end, but wishing him well, and I think he could be a bit of a gem for Leicester in these next couple of years. Next then for Middlesbrough, and they're a difficult one to judge. They've had a disastrous start to this Championship campaign, but how would I rate their transfer business? I think when compared with the squad they had last season compared to this, I do think they are weaker across the board. With that being said, the type of recruitment that Borough have done, I think we'll only know if this window was a success a few years down the line, because they have invested in a lot of young and upcoming players who could go on to be stars for them. But in terms of the right here and now, I still have a few question marks over that side. It was a big overhaul of the squad with 12 new players coming in, but as we said before, bringing in a lot of players doesn't automatically equal good transfer window. They need to be quality players who improve the squad, especially like the loan pickup of Lewis O'Brien. I think he improves them in midfield, but I still have a few question marks over a few of the other unproven players. Still have a question mark over Seny Dieng as well, and obviously the loss of Akpom, which was probably expected at some point in this window. Overall for Borough, I'd probably say maybe a bit of a meh window, but maybe that's just me reading in their poor start to the season into that as well. After that, for Millwall, I think they can be quite happy with how they've come out of this transfer window, really. Still kept hold of Zian Fleming, and I think they've boosted their options across the board. Maybe an extra defender could have been useful, but generally speaking, I think that Millwall have done some great business this summer. Like the captures of Casper Noor, Kevin Nisbet already getting off the mark and looking lively for Millwall in the final third. Sarkic, I think, will be a good option long term for them. And then they also use the loan market to their advantage towards the end of the window as well. So all in all, I think it's been some great business by Millwall this summer. Next then for Norwich City, I think they've had an epitome of a solid transfer window really. The loss of Omar Bamadelli quite late on was a bit of a shock to the system, but generally speaking, I think that Norwich have probably used the free agents market better than any other Championship club. They've added experience to their squad, which was severely lacking from last season, and a couple of nice pickups that they paid for as well. Obviously, Christian Fassnacht, I think, has already shown some real glimpses of promise so far. Hwang came in on deadline day to sort of offset that loss of Josh Sargent for the next few months that they're going to have to cope with. And generally speaking, I think that Norwich have just done some good business throughout this window, really. After that for Plymouth Argyle, and I really think that they are one of the Championship clubs that have been winning this transfer window. The additions of Bali Mumba and Morgan Whittaker especially were absolutely excellent captures for Plymouth, particularly because of the money they spent on those two players, not overspending whatsoever, and then how they've gone ahead and strengthened their squad across the board in other departments. Yes, another centre forward definitely would have been ideal. They didn't get that over the line in the end, but even so, I think they've utilised the loan market really well, done some clever recruitment from Europe as well. And while there were, quite a few fears with this Plymouth squad coming up to the Championship because of how heavily they relied on some of those loanees in League One last season, don't think those fears exist anymore, and that's because they've had a really good transfer window. After that for my side, Preston North End, and I really think we've done some great business. We were coming into this summer as Preston fans quite nervous really, considering the loss of Daniel Johnson. Loanees returning from last season. Didn't seem coming into this summer that we had that much money to spend, but in the end we've really gone ahead and pulled it out the bag. Yes, we didn't get that deal for Tom Cannon over the line in the end, but I really think we have strengthened across the board, and some of the players we've picked up I think have already proven themselves to be absolute gems so far. Will Keane and Dwayne Holmes, for example, I think have been brilliant signings. Both really low cost ones at that as well. Mats Frøyke Jensen's been really exciting, someone who I think will just grow into this season as it goes along. And then we got a couple deals done on deadline day as well. Still got more to come from the likes of Leighton Stewart and Calvin Ramsey this season. In an ideal situation, I do think we'd have signed a left wing back as well to sort of compete with Keane Best and obviously back up Robbie Brady as he's out injured at the moment. But all in all, I think this has been a great window for Preston, I really do. After that for QPR, now this was always going to be a very difficult transfer window for QPR because of their FFP situation. They didn't really have a massive sale go through in the end. Obviously they lost the likes of Seny Dieng and Rob Dickie, but they didn't go for a huge transfer fee that someone like Ilias Chair would have, for example. Obviously managed to keep hold of Chair and Willock, which is seen as a positive, but QPR were pretty much exclusively relying on their free agents and loan market this summer, with their notable additions being the likes of Asmir Begovic and Jack Colback, Paul Smythe as well. From the outside looking in, you probably would say it was a bad window for QPR, but it was due to the circumstances that I've just mentioned there. It does feel as if Ainsworth will need to pull quite a bit out of the bag to go ahead and carry on making this squad competitive. Keeping Chair was massive for QPR, and while they have added some experience to that squad, I still think it's badly lacking in quality in some key areas. After that for Rotherham United, and you know what, I really think they pulled it out the bag later on in this transfer window, considering they lost the likes of Chidozie Ogbenny and Wes Harding early on. Ben Wiles then departed. It was all looking a bit nervy in and around Rotherham, but in the end I think they broke their transfer record not once but twice in this window, have added some real quality to that squad both in attack and defence. Sam Nombe, I'm really excited about how he gets on at Rotherham long term, and overall I'd say it's been a solid window in the end for Rotherham. They have given themselves a fighting chance of survival this season. After that for Sheffield Wednesday, I am going to chuck them into bad window category. I think it took Wednesday an absolute age to get going in this summer transfer window compared to some of the other Championship sides, and in the end, while they have got deals over the line, it's very much been an approach of a lot of unproven players coming in. I'm not sure instantly how much of an impact a few of those players are going to have, and ultimately I think they've left themselves short especially in the final third. Obviously, they did get that deal over the line for Ashley Fletcher, but I still think they're a proven goal scorer or two away from being properly competitive. Running over the names that have come in compared to who Ipswich and Plymouth have signed especially, it just feels like very risky business from Sheffield Wednesday if they're going to, completely gamble all that on their championship survival this season. After that for Southampton, now I know they're coming off the back of an absolutely disastrous result against Sunderland, but judging this transfer window in isolation, I do think Southampton have done some really good business. Yes, they lost Nathan Teller, but they did manage to keep the likes of Adam Armstrong and Che Adams, who look like a certainty to be off at one stage. They also went ahead, added Ross Stewart on deadline day. Shea Charles, I think, could be a really good pickup from Man City in the long term. They got one of the best free transfers of the season signed up in Ryan Manning as well. And Taylor Harwood-Bellis, I think, could be an excellent pickup for the season from Man City. Already one promotion under his belt with Burnley last season. Overall for the Saints, I am going to say they've done some great business this time around. They've made an absolute fortune through player sales as well, so are working with in an overall net profit, judging solely their transfer business this summer. I do think their squad's looking strong across the board. No excuses there for Russ Martin not to have them right in the promotion hunt for me. After that for Stoke City, now sometimes we can be blinded, like I said before, with a lot of players coming in at once and we automatically go, oh my god, what a window. But I think if you compare what Stoke had last season compared to this season, undoubtedly they are stronger across the board, and it is going to take time for Alex Neil to fit all of these puzzle pieces together. With that being said, I do think Stoke are probably one of the sides that have been winning the window this time around. I think there's been a decent blend throughout Stoke's recruitment this summer of proven experienced players who are in their prime right now, and also upcoming stars who Stoke can continue to mould and develop. Another club who I think has utilised the loan market very well and the European market as well. Berger, probably the player I'm most excited about long term from a Stoke City perspective, but some of their other signings have already hit the ground running. Vidigal, for example, has been excellent in the games I've seen so far. So overall for Stoke, undoubtedly they're coming out of this window a hell of a lot stronger than they went into it. After that for Sunderland, and it's a hard window to really judge for Sunderland because we won't know if this has been a success until 2-3 years down the line, because they've gone so heavy on recruiting in upcoming youngsters. It's hard to judge them on this next 12 months and say if they've been a success or not at the club, because they will continue to grow, and I'm sure that Sunderland in time will turn a healthy profit on a lot of the players they have invested into. Now, we have already seen an impact of a few of the players that Sunderland have picked up this summer. Joe Bellingham, for example, I've been really impressed by how he's been thrown straight into that starting 11 by Tony Mowbray and the instant impact he's already made. Yes, they lost Ross Stewart late on, but I think Sunderland fans were probably expecting to lose Ross Stewart at some stage, and ultimately they did get a really decent transfer fee with a player who didn't play much last season and only had 1 year left remaining on his contract. To keep hold of Jack Clark and Patrick Roberts, I think was absolutely crucial for Sunderland as well. They've gone ahead and done that. So all in all for Sunderland, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and I'll put it as a solid transfer window. I think in terms of improving on last season's finish, they probably needed a little bit more in the here and now. But long term, I think it could be a solid transfer window for Sunderland as those players continue to develop. Next then for Swansea. Now, I wasn't expecting loads from Swansea coming into this summer, but I think they've ended the window with 13 new additions. Obviously, the big departure was Joel Perreault, but in the end, I think they were always going to cash in on him with the forward only having 1 year left on his deal at Swansea. Got a decent chunk of change from him and ultimately have reinvested into the rest of that side. Jerry Yates probably being their best addition so far. Also utilised the loan market really well, particularly like the deadline day pickup of Jamal Lowe, who joined the club back on loan. And all in all, I'd say it's been a solid transfer window for Swansea, and it's now up to Duff to get the best out of that group of players and get them back up the league table. Next then for Watford, and it's been a difficult summer for Watford. In terms of clearing some of the deadwood, I think Watford have done fairly well in that respect, but when it comes to incomings and improving the options that Valérien Ismaël has available to him, I'm not quite sure. Looking through the list of incomings that Watford have brought in this summer, how many of those are going to pull up many trees for Watford over this next season or two? I'm not massively sure. I think that Radjovic could be decent, is a decent short-term option. But all in all, for a side that probably will have aspirations to be in and around the top 6, I'd say it's been a pretty poor window for Watford in terms of incomings and adding the adequate quality to that squad. There's probably more players in there who suit the profile of the manager, but in terms of actual quality, I think Watford have lost quite a bit. Finishing things off with West Brom. Now, West Brom were coming into this summer in quite unique circumstances. It seemed at the start of the summer that this transfer window could be an absolute disaster for the Baggies, and in the end it's not really unfolded that way. Don't get me wrong, their incomings have been quite few and far between. Ultimately, a couple of loanees coming in and a free transfer on top of that as well, but I think most West Brom fans, given the scenario behind the scenes, would have taken that at the start of the summer. Obviously, Dara O'Shea, the most high profile departure, but apart from that, keeping hold of the rest of that squad, which I think was important. So overall for the Baggies, I'd say it's probably been a bit of a meh transfer window, but I think at the start of the summer every West Brom fan would have taken that. There we have it though, guys. Those are my thoughts on each Championship club's summer transfer window. Do you agree with my takes? Let me know down below. Apart from that though, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Do get your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.